Well, the war was declared in '39, as you know, and I was a schoolboy, high school at the time. I wanted to fly. When I was a kid, of course, I used to go out and watch the little planes up in the air, and I wanted to fly, so I joined the Air Force. In '42, I was called up and became a member of the RAF. I was classified as a wireless operator and sent to Ballarat radio training school, but I was pretty hopeless at Morse code, so I was reclassified as a gunner. And from Adelaide, about 600 of us went on a little cargo ship, the Denbighshire. Denbighshire normally had about a dozen passengers, and the rest of whatever cargo they had. They'd stripped out the fittings underneath and put in hammocks. We slept in hammocks on the way to England, went via the New Zealand and then Panama and then to England. We were put on a train down to Brighton, South England, and we did a little bit of training there. Then posted to Litchfield, 2702U, Operational Training Unit. There we were put in to made into crews. Quite interesting the way they did that. They put a group of us in a hangar, and the officer in charge says, right, I've got 2 hours, form myself into crews. The crew members became very close because you depended on the other, your life depended on the other fellows. So we were closer than brothers really at the end of the time. We trained on a Wellington aircraft, crew of 5, and that was then supplemented by 2 more people because we moved from 2-engine Wellingtons to 4-engine to finally up with the Lancaster. It was a very good aircraft. I had the rear gunner position, and to improve the vision, the perspex was cut out of the back of the turret, so you just looked at the outside air. Very cold. On D-Day morning, we were operating on the coast of Normandy, bombing German gun emplacements. And we're flying back west of the Cherbourg Peninsula, and I had a marvellous view of the Channel with over 5,000 ships in there. Marvellous view. Stays in my mind forever. That was D-Day. And then on the night of 10th, 11th June, we'd been bombing at railway yards at Alençon in France. And we were flying westward home to get back to base. And big sheets of flame came past the turret. Both the mid-upper gunner and myself alerted the pilot there was fire in the port engine, inner engine. The engineer was able to put that fire out. Other engines started to get on fire also. A few moments later, the plane became difficult for the pilot to handle, and it was losing height. The pilot told the 2 gunners to get out of their turrets and throw overboard anything they could other than the parachutes to lighten the weight. So the rear hatch was open, and it became obvious that we weren't going to be able to make it to England. We would crash into the Channel or into the Atlantic. So the pilot told the crew to bail out. So the mid-upper sat there and he wasn't getting anywhere, so I gave him a push and he was gone. I sat there, couldn't fall out. But fortunately I was a kid that grew up on a dairy farm that had post and rail fences, and I was used to getting through a post and rail fence, lean forward and drive out. So I quickly got back into the aircraft, faced forward, sat on the thing, pushed myself out, down. It was pitch dark, of course, and I pushed myself out, waited a few seconds, let the trailing aerial go past, and pulled the ripcord, floated down. First I knew it was near the ground with brush, tree branches. I didn't hurt myself at all. I landed, gathered up the parachute, headed under some leaves, and started walking north. I knew the Allies had landed 4 days beforehand, so I figured if I got up north I could hide on a farm, wait till the push through came, and get back to England. I got up north and I could hear the guns of the battle. Decided that was close enough. Found a little village of about half a dozen houses and knocked on the watch. There were no Germans around, so I went and knocked on the door of one. A lady came out and I asked her to buy some food. She realised I was an airman on the run. I realised she was a friendly person. I could speak French reasonably, and she said, well, we have a farm just down the lane there, about half a kilometre. Walk down that lane, there's an empty house, barn. Get yourself in the barn up and we'll leave some food outside at night. So I was in there for about a week. I swapped some of my clothing with French farm clothes. Said to get out quickly because the Germans were in the village. So I grabbed my little bag or whatever I had and took off. Got about 3 fields away, small fields, hedges all round them, and 2 German soldiers, halt! And we both, the German and myself, spoke French. My French was better than his. But they said, papier, papier. Next papier, no papers. Rested. Pour vous, la guerre est finie. For you, the war is over. Army Captain Hoffman interrogated me quietly, established I was an airman on the run. So they locked me in a room, and the next day they passed me over to the Luftwaffe. And from there, the Luftwaffe, the German Air Force people, took me, a young corporal fellow in the Air Force, took me to Paris, and then just outside Paris to interrogation centre was set up for all the airmen coming in. A few days later, we were sent by train to an NCO Luftwaffe camp at Bankau, Bankau in Poland. We were in that camp at Christmas time. We were alerted that the Red Army was coming west. We might have to move. We walked for a few days and averaged about say 10 to 15 kilometres a day, slept in barns or anywhere we could. We were put on a train and moved from there to a place called Luckenwalde. It's a town that was a big camp set up in the civilian days for civilian people, about 30 kilometres south of Berlin. But it had become a big camp for American and Australian or British airmen or servicemen. Must have been about 10,000 altogether, big place. We were in that camp when the Red Army arrived. The first troops were in a tank, well equipped, and then the next day the Red Army people started coming past. There was like a mob crowd going to the football. Swarms and swarms of people on foot, on bikes, on trucks, on horse, or anything. It was all going west. Hundreds of them, thousands. It was amazing. It had apparently been arranged at Yalta that the British Allied troops would be repatriated via Odessa. And they stuck with that. A lot of us now started walking down the road towards the American line. I stopped that night in a little German town with a German family. They were pleased to see us rather than the Russians come in. And next morning, we three got out on the road walking down towards the American line. A little Russian truck convoy came along, 3 or 4 vehicles, and we hitched a ride. The identification was you put a little flag on your shoulder. We all put a little American flag on our shoulder because I knew what that was. I was sitting on this truck and the Russians didn't speak any English and I didn't speak any Russian. Some of them with bandages around their heads and whatever. But I said to one of them, "Ford, oh Ford, Chev, Chev." They both knew because those 2 words, the Americans have been providing a lot of equipment to the Red Army. They dropped us off at a place called Zerbst on the Elbe River. The Americans had put in a floating bridge. We said to the Yank sergeant, "Can we get a ride back over with you people?" He said, "Who are you? What are you?" We told him and he said, "Well, get inside one of each of these 3 tanks." We got a ride back in the afternoon with the tanks. Got there about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And the sergeant said, "You fellas had anything to eat?" We said, "No." "Come here." Took us over to the cookhouse. Said to the cook, "These fellas, prisoners, haven't had anything to eat. Got anything for them?" "Oh, yes." Went over, opened a big fridge door, took out a cooked half chicken. 1, 2, 3. We scoffed a lot. They passed us off to Brussels. And from Brussels we were flown back to England. And from landing there we went back to Brighton. We were in camp there for 2 or 3 weeks, waiting to go home. In 1985, Ruth and myself went to England to see our younger daughter who had married an Englishman. And I said to his son-in-law, who spoke French, I said to him, "I'd like to go over to Normandy, see if we could find that family who was so helpful and thank them." He said, right, we'll go over next weekend. So I found the old farm. The little village that I was on is called Lavant. The old barn had been demolished, and sorry, the old house had been demolished, and a new house built there. We spoke to the new fellow, had a couple of wines, and I said to him, I suppose the farmer and his wife might have passed on. And he said, no, they retired only about a month or so ago. They were at such and such, little village about 5 k's away. So we got direction, went over there, knocked on their door. They were delighted to see the person all those years later. And we had a couple of wines together, swapped our names and addresses, because up to then nothing was written down. We've been in touch ever since. I've been back there 3 or 4 times. We still keep in touch by email now.